Okay, welcome into my Vanguard portfolio update now, the first one in 2024. A whole new year of investing. Who knows what's in store for us? It's certainly been a little bit of a bumpy start, but then actually as I record this video and now looking at the stock markets, we're sending all kind of different confusing messages. If we have a look now in the US market, the S&P 500 just set a new all-time high as I was actually recording the video or looking to research it. It's a weird one because actually I think it feels like it's been a bit of a bumpy start. We've had lots of different days where stocks have been sold off pretty hard, but then other stocks just seemingly just continue to rally. We've obviously got what's going on at the moment in terms of the shipping routes being bombed by Houthi rebels in around the Gulf of Aden, Red Sea area, which is a key shipping route for many goods that we will buy from the Far East. They will ship themselves on boats, and unfortunately if they can't go through that route, that takes them down below the coast of South Africa. And that adds about 9 or 10 days to shipping. And you can imagine all the different costs that's involved to that one. Now that has spooked the market somewhat because that means that all the things we like to buy potentially will go up in price, not helping good old friends inflation, which we're trying to keep under control. And then of course that spills into the world of interest rates from central banks like the Bank of England and the Federal Reserve over in the US. There is still that expectation that rates will be cut, or at least somewhat toward the middle of the year, maybe end of the year, but potentially this could now be brought back a little bit further. Who knows? So the markets have felt a bit shaky, but actually it's quite an interesting one that your sentiment actually is very different from the reality of looking at the markets, if that makes sense. So it's very, very weird at the moment seeing that sentiment shift, yet the S&P 500 hits a new all-time high. But as usual, remember the economy is certainly not the stock market. Picking out a big winner in the 2024 stock market so far, Nvidia just continues to shine. That stock at the moment just continues to kind of defy gravity, up 23% year to date so far. It just seems like every single day you look at the stock, it just keeps rising higher and higher. At these sort of levels, that kind of scares me a little bit. I'm very happy that as an index fund investor, I own plenty of Nvidia, more than enough I need to. And as an individual stockholder, I would be a little bit concerned at this point that people are just chasing gains. I'm sure the company has a great future. I've owned it multiple times in the past. And when I see it at prices like this, obviously I have many, many regrets and I wish I held it for much longer. But I'm more than happy at this point. It feels like it's replacing the likes of Tesla as this amazing hype stock, which everyone's going to get rich and 10x pro. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that one gets on. And just on that one, it is quite interesting. The likes of Nvidia may be replacing Tesla as this kind of retail favorite stock. Tesla, if we have a look now, year to date down 15%. So some very tough times ahead so far for that company. A few bad things happening in the news with Hertz selling off lots of their fleet. Lots of people kind of underwhelmed, I guess you'd say, with the likes of the Cybertruck. Sure, it might be sold out, but this is only for a very, very small minority of people in the US who can afford a six-figure 4x4, which is probably not really going to be used much for work and more just for showing off, going down shopping to your local Walmart. But hey, who knows? And this week we had the unfortunate news that a Tesla bot cannot yet fold your laundry. So you're going to have many, many years of that ahead, unfortunately. There's always someone in the background controlling that bot. So my advice is the moment is get very good at folding your own clothes, at least for the next, decade or so. Now, here at home, things are definitely not looking as exciting as they are over in the US, with the S&P 500 hitting all new time highs. And unfortunately, the FTSE 100 had one of its worst trading days, and actually is having a very, very bad start to the year. If you have a look now on screen, you can see that the FTSE 100 is down almost 4% so far this year. And I'll also put up the FTSE 250 as well. Gives you a bit more of a flavour of the UK market, pretty much following the same trend. So UK-only investors are having a very, very bad time at the moment. And this is always a good reminder to make sure you're well diversified as an investor. If you are an investor who really, really likes your UK stocks and really likes those dividend stocks in particular, well, that might be great. But when you look at times like this, you're going to have to put up with some pretty horrific performances. And also, really, remember the UK only makes up a very small slither of that global stock market. But hey, we'll see how things progress in the new year. Now, on that point of interest rates and inflation, you would have saw inflation data from the UK come up a little bit hotter than expected, which did put the panic on for a lot of investors who were expecting the Bank of England to potentially start reducing rates quite early on. And now there's going to be pressure to hold those rates a little bit higher so we get inflation under control. But really, who knows at this point? As a long-term investor, personally, I don't really spend any of my waking hours worrying about interest rates and whether they're going to come down or not. but certainly in the short term, they can have huge impact on the stock market as an investor. But over the long run, I just keep doing what I do. Anyway, let's dive straight into the portfolio. I'll take you through my self-invested personal pension and my stocks and shares ISA that I have on the Vanguard platform. Are we at all-time highs yet just because the S&P 500 hit all-time highs, or are we lagging a little bit behind? Let's have a look. Okay, so let's have a look on screen now. I think we're doing pretty well. I think we're a tiny bit away from all-time highs that we would have seen in the account. Both the pension and the ISA are up. You can see here, total gain of £5,762.84. Always nice mentally to see those green numbers because they have been red in the past. If you've been a regular viewer of the channel, you would have seen kind of some of the lower points of 2022. As many viewers will know, and regular viewers will know, the SIP, the personal pension, is some of my old workplace pensions that I've moved together and just have them invested and sat there. Can't touch that for many, many, many years to come. The ISA is one that I started a couple of years ago. And again, I don't add any new money to that one because my current ISA is with InvestEngine, which you can actually follow along as well on the portfolio updates. Now, a couple of things. As always, let's go into the investments tab. I always like looking at the performance just to kind of show you where a lot of these gains have come from because it's been in a short couple of months. Firstly, let's have a look at this graph. I'm pretty sure I looked earlier. We're not quite at all-time highs, but we're very, very close. If I have a look here, 2nd of January, yeah, 59,487. So we're at 59,25. So we're just a little bit away. Potentially, that could update as we go into next week, and we might see that one bump up. Who knows? It's always worth remembering that exchange rates do have an impact on your returns as well. Now, last year, you would have seen the S&P 500 rally about 25-26%, but your UK-based funds, who might have invested in the S&P 500, went up around, I think around 19%. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'll put that one up on screen now. And the only difference and the only kind of tracking error there is unfortunately the exchange rate. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the pound strengthened, I believe it was around that kind of 5 or 6 percentage point mark, which is where the difference is, if anyone's wondering. Because that often does get brought up quite a lot. Now, from an investment standpoint, I keep things very, very simple in this account, and this really much is a set and forget, leave this one just to do its thing. It means that I can just sleep at night and not have to worry about in my investments. Now, a while back, I just moved everything into a single index fund, as you can see on screen now. This is the FTSE Global All Cap Index Fund, the accumulation version, which just means everything gets reinvested. Any dividends that get paid in the background all get reinvested. There's nothing for me basically to do other than pay my fees quarterly and just watch my account go up. Now, one new thing I was going to focus on in this portfolio update, if you might have seen some of my recent videos, I have done kind of my best Vanguard portfolio and a few different portfolio ideas for you to invest in as a beginner and as someone who wants to play around with the platform or maybe use Vanguard funds on other platforms. Lots of you are now asking the question, you may have bought an index fund or an ETF that you're not necessarily a big fan of that you might want to switch. And lots of people are asking, how do you do it on the Vanguard platform? But let me show you, it's really, really easy. So for example, let's go into my ISA here, just as an example. All you need to do on this investment page, you get this action button here. So you'll see these 3 little dots on screen now. And if you wanted to move, for example, I think one of the best examples is an ETF like VWRL. Lots of people are invested in this one. And the downside is that it pays a dividend. Now that downside is when that dividend gets paid in your account, firstly, you don't even get an email that you've received a dividend. And secondly, until that dividend is big enough to buy another ETF, another share of that ETF, it's sat there doing nothing, which is quite unfortunate. So lots of people now want to buy VWRP. I'll put this up on screen now. This didn't used to be available on Vanguard's website, and you could only buy it on other platforms like Trading 212, Free Trade, InvestEngine. But now you can actually buy it on Vanguard's platform directly, finally. So if you did want to do that, very, very simple. You click your 3 dots here, and you always have these 3 options, basically top up, sell, or switch. So if I wanted to move from this global index fund, I could click the switch button. It will take me through the next process. And really at this stage, I won't go you through the whole process, but it's very, very straightforward. You can sell the entire holding, or you can do part of it. And then in the next stage, very, very simply, you will then choose that investment you want to go for, and then you can go ahead and complete that order. So very, very straightforward, nice and easy. Always worth saying, if you're doing that inside an ISA or inside a SIP, there's no concerns with any capital gains or any dividends. You haven't got anything to worry about there because you might have had a big gain in your account on those. Once you make those trades inside your account, there's nothing to worry about. Another question which came up recently, which is actually a really, really good one, is if you're moving any investments from a general investing account and you want to make sure you get it in your ISA because remember, ISA is use it or lose it for the tax year that you're currently in. Any sales you make in a general investment account are going to be liable to dividends and capital gains. So if you did have any investment in a general investing account, like I actually did a couple of years ago, you want to maybe think about a plan to try and get them inside an ISA or some kind of tax wrapper or even a SIP. But you can't just move them into an ISA without losing or being affected by capital gains and dividends. Just be aware of that one. In your current tax year, you have £1,000 worth of dividends before you have to start paying taxes, and you have £6,000 of capital gains allowances before you have to start paying taxes. In the new tax year, which is really fast approaching and coming up very soon in April, remember those are going to be cut in half again. So they're going to be £500 for dividend allowances and then just only £3,000 for capital gains. So as I have mentioned before in some other videos, I think now, these years moving forward, these tax efficient accounts like ISAs are going to be more important than ever. Because in the past, you could have played around with a general investing account and even investing a couple of £100 a month and making some big gains, you were very, very unlikely to breach those old rules, which was £12,300 on capital gain and £2,000 on dividends. You'd probably not really get very far there. You know, you could have a £20,000 dividend account with lots of different stocks in it and get £1 or £2 grand a year, and you wouldn't even breach those rules. But now, smaller accounts or accounts which are kind of growing really need to be inside these tax wrappers. So figure out what you can do. As usual, I'm not a financial advisor, but I really think you should just sit down if you do have investments in a GIA, which you've kind of grown and grown and grown, to think, right, now's the time, this is the year to sort things out, get everything inside ISAs or SIPs or however you want to do it and structure that. I did a video recently as well, which you may have seen, ISA versus SIP, and that is quite a complicated topic, and I will be working on a kind of in-depth SIP video at some point, but always worth saying to go through that one and make sure you're doing it in the most tax efficient way. Now, finally on that one, I was going to show this one at the beginning, but let's just quickly go into the performance month by month. As a reminder to newer investors, as you do this for longer and longer, you get kind of immune and you get used to seeing these things go up and down. And if you did join me throughout 2022, you would have seen we had some terrible runs. You would have seen here, especially during that kind of spring, summertime 2022, look at those 3 months there. You know, minus 290, minus 1,300, minus nearly £2,500 before the market had a little bit of a bump back, but it was very, very choppy. The gains from last year were really kind of loaded towards summer and winter. And you just have a look here, for example, in November and December alone, that's nearly £5,000 worth of individual gains there in those different months. And then you look at the cumulative returns here, they all came in a very, very short period of time. Now, I think that is a huge reminder to make sure you're in the market to capture those gains. Trying to pick the market, trying to guess if it's a good time to invest. So many people comment and ask me if it's a good time to invest. And my answer will always remain the exact same thing. It is always a good time to invest. If you are a long-term investor investing into index funds regularly for the next 10, 20, 30 years, it is always a good time to invest. Because if you're trying to guess, you will never guess it right. At least you won't guess it consistently. And every time you do invest, for example, and manually put money in, you are going to be guessing, is this the best time to invest? But we've just hit an all-time high. Surely the market can't go any higher. Surely it has to come down. I'm going to wait for a 10% drop, a 20% drop. The issue is that 10% drop, that 20% drop may never come. And if it does come, that could be years and years and years away. So word of warning, it's always up to you at the end of the day. But as someone who's done this many times and sold out of the market plenty of times and made loads of mistakes, I would strongly say not to do. Anyway, I'm excited for the new investing year. I'm going to be very interested in how this one goes. Let me know how your portfolios are going at the moment. Let me know if you're making any changes as we go into the new tax year, and also thinking about your own accounts as well. Anyway, I will see you in the next video. Thanks as always for watching, and as always, happy investing.